All right, so there's a new report from an advocacy group called In the Public Interest. And this report shows that private prison companies mandate high inmate occupancy rates through contracts with the states, in some cases up to 100%. Damn. The report named Criminal How Lockup Quotas and Low Crime Taxes Guarantee Profits for Private Prison Corporations shows how private prison contracts with states enrich corporations at the expense of the taxpayer, whether or not prisoners fill the beds. Now, this is fascinating. Some of the major findings from this report are as follows. 65% of private prison contracts include occupancy guarantees in the form of quotas and required payments for empty cells. That's your, quote, low crime tax, okay? Occupancy guarantees range from 80 to 100%. 90% is actually the most frequently used requirement. In these states, Arizona, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Virginia have all signed contracts with the highest occupancy requirements, with all the quotas requiring 95 to 100% occupancy.
That's so absurd. That's so ridiculous. Prison should never have an occupancy requirement. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
Or a profit motive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there should be as many criminals in prison as there are violent criminals that should be in prison.
And the scam is even worse because even if they don't fill those prisons, say crime goes down, which it has been over the last decade,
right?
The states are still getting charged with this, low crime tax.
I mean, the states pay for empty prisons, whether they're public or private. But look, the 90% occupancy thing. If we were in like a perfect world of like sunshine and lollipops, and they were just moving people from other prisons to that one to fill that requirement, and it was cheaper there, and it was a great deal for the taxpayer, like that would sound fine. But we've seen time and time again that they actually lobby for more laws to give you longer jail sentences in order to fill those occupancy ratings. It's a scam, basically. It's a scam on the taxpayer, and it's disastrous because you can be arrested and you don't know, and now like you have to worry about is the law that I was arrested under a actual crime, or was I arrested just to fill my seat in this prison that's already been pre-guaranteed? It's totally unconstitutional.
Are the charges against me going to be inflated so that they can use that as an excuse to put me in jail or keep me in jail longer?
And wait till these prisons start buying new vehicles for the local police department and donating them to them. Like wait till that starts happening, when you start seeing kickbacks between the cops and the prisons, which I'm sure has already happened.
I've always thought this sort of thing is ridiculous. It's always a disaster. I mean, even when just cops are given quotas on how many tickets or citations they have to give out, it's a disaster. End quotas entirely. If someone commits a crime, then deal with that crime, and that's it. You know, how are you supposed to get actual, realistic statistics about the rates of crime and whether or not they're going up or down if you're actually are setting requirements for yourself on how many criminals you have to find and arrest? It creates a system where you're creating criminals out of what would have been normal law-abiding citizens. And you know, like Sean mentioned, they actually do lobby to have new laws put on the books so that they have more excuses to lock up more people so that they can fill these quotas.
Even though crime has dropped in Colorado by a third over the last decade, these occupancy requirements, these quotas, have forced the taxpayers to pay $2 million in fees just for unoccupied cells. Another example, Arizona. Arizona has 3 for-profit prison contracts with a 100% occupancy quota. And an analysis done by the Tucson Citizen shows that the company's per-day charge for each prison has risen an average of 13.9% over the life of the contracts. So they're charging more per prisoner. They're charging the state more per prisoner.
And the thing is, these aren't private prisons. They're what you call it. They're a scam. They don't have, but to me, to be a private company, we've been over this before. You have to have actual human customers. If your customer's the government, then you can just buy the government and get and guarantee yourself more money. Like they like I'm all for cutting spending and cutting useless government departments and all that, but like putting people in prison is a government job, and even if these prisons were cheaper, I don't want it to be cheaper to put people in prison. I want it to be more expensive. Maybe they'll repeal some laws if they're going bankrupt, like marijuana laws. Like I don't see the benefit even if it is cheaper. Like they're gonna be like, oh, it's cheaper to lock people up. Let's lock more people up. Like I want the drug war to end. So I want the price for a prisoner to be like $1 million
Right. Yeah, I
per
understand.
day.
It's horrible, the human element that's involved here, because real human lives are being absolutely ruined forever because a private prison company wants to make the most possible amount of money. And these petty laws, like these drug laws and whatnot, people are getting arrested for them, put in prison. They go in prison as petty criminals and come out as hardened, true criminals that become institutionalized and end up recycling themselves back into the system.
And that's if they get out, get out at all. Safety in some of these for-profit prisons. There's a 20-year deal, and here's a good example. A 20-year deal to operate the Lake Erie Correctional Institute in Ohio that has a 90% quota has contributed to the prison cutting corners on safety. So, and they cut corners, of course, by overcrowding. There are areas that lack secure doors, and of course, all this stuff leads to more crime inside the prison and outside the prison. Imagine that.
Yeah, we hear stories about how there's not enough guards, or how that the guards actually pick the gang leaders and they say, "All right, you take care of the law enforcement." So what you're basically having is the prison like code be actually the law and rules of the prison. But it's just ridiculous. The occupancy ratings are ridiculous, and it actually ruins policing, because what happens is the officers are incentivized to get as many people arrested as possible. They're gonna go for the easiest arrest possible, and
Which
that's
is
why
drug
you
arrest.
see in yeah, and that's why you see in cities like Baltimore, and this is a stat from the House I Live In, that documentary. In Baltimore, their drug arrests doubled, and their murder, rape, and robbery arrests are cut in half, because none of the officers know how to solve a fucking crime, because only the idiots who filled their quota by arresting the dumbest, the easiest people are the ones who got promoted. So it actually has disastrous consequences in our police force and basically throughout our entire society.
That is absolutely true. What a great point, because it's so true. When you have these petty laws and when you have these quotas for whether it's for arrests or for tickets or any kind of quota system, what you're doing is you're wasting the police force's time, which could be used to go after actual criminals like rapists and thieves and murderers and things like that. And when all the police force is doing is taking care of these petty, ridiculous, non-crimes, as I think of them, and they're buried in mounds and mounds of paperwork, they're not actually out there doing any real, genuine, honest police work that's going to benefit our society.
And this goes back to money in politics, I think, because prison corporations, of course, will lobby for the contracts with the quotas, but they'll also lobby for, guess what? Tough on crime laws, petty laws that like the three strikes law, and laws against marijuana.
It ties in. It's basically the drawer, and then it creates the private prisons, and then the private prisons basically are incentivized to perpetuate the drug war. It's a complete disaster. But like, I just want to point out that home burglaries or robberies, those are the hardest crimes to solve statistically, right? Now, murders are foreign. Rapes and murders are like probably the worst crimes. I think we'd all agree. Like, I
Hmm.
want my cops to be incentivized to solve rapes, murders, and then robberies, right? Because robberies are difficult. Like, I don't want them to be incentivized to walk up to a hundred black kids New York City, throw them all up against the wall, find drugs on 5 of them, and then get 5 quick arrests, while the guy who spends months solving a murder only has 1 arrest for 3 months. Like it's ridiculous. Like
Yes.
how our police force works. And remember, they're not quotas. They're efficiency and work requirement standards. Because if you change the words, it makes it
Right.
okay.
Oh,
Of
that's
course.
lovely wordplay.
Yeah, they got that lesson from the Republicans.
Mm. But I wanted to go into for my final points on this. I just wanted to go into some of the lobbying from these corporations. Corrections Corporation of America spent $17.4 million lobbying from 2002 to 2012. Geo Group spent $2.5 million from 2004 to 2012. Corrections Corporation of America spent nearly $2 million in political contributions from 2003 to 2012. And of course, Geo Group, once again, spent nearly $3 million on political contributions from 2003 to 2012. And you wonder why
I
we
think
have these kind of laws.